Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Witness Chat in the Ramble. Today we're going to be joined by not only some of the witnesses, but some of the people from Steam Inc. And we'll start off by welcoming Eli. How are you today?
Great, thank you. Nice to be here and chat with everyone.
Yeah, it's been, what, a month? Yeah, 17th of July was the last one, so not quite a month. You've had a busy month if I've been watching the blog.
Has been busy. We've made a lot of great progress. I think a few people take some days off here and there, but people are really just focused on shipping product. And so the amount of work that's gone on in the last month has really just blown me away.
So I'm assuming that there was probably some bugs found on the testnet on Hard Fork 21.
Yeah.
Justin's coming to the rescue there.
I was about to say I can probably comment on that a little bit. A few were discovered, nothing major, and they were all resolved before we actually tagged the 0.21 release. So that's great. I think a lot more testing has happened with this hard fork, both by us and by other developers and witnesses than we saw with the hard fork 20 testnet.
Definitely learned a lesson on that hard fork 20, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want any repeat events like that. So I think we're in pretty good shape for this one as a result, since so much testing has happened with it.
So 13 days away, you're holding your breath, or just hoping for the best?
I wouldn't say it's hoping for the best. I think we feel pretty confident that this should go relatively well. I don't think we're going to have any major hiccups.
So how many of the top 20 in particular, although any of the witnesses, were involved in the testnet?
That's a good question. I don't have an exact number, but quite a few of them. I'd say at least half of the top 20 were at least somewhat involved in testing some things. Many have synced their own nodes to test with, and a few have actually got their hands dirty with testing the proposal system directly, which is all really great work, and I really appreciate that they're doing that.
So, do you want to share anything that you caught that you saved us from? Well, half of the top 20 isn't that bad when some of them are social and not particularly technical, Kitty.
Yeah, and we also had some that were not in the top 22, and some people who are just developers, community developers who are not witnesses at all, that were helping out with testing. So, I think that number's not really that bad. I think that's great. I was glad to see that much testing going on with it. Some things that we were saved from. There are some minor API call issues, some things with how you list proposals. There was one with how you submit a proposal. Let's see, what else? It was all pretty minor stuff. Nothing too extreme.
That's good to know. Frank is just reminding us there's no spoon to go with the fork.
Remember, there is no spoon, he says, yeah.
Some of these just can get a little distracting.
Yeah.
So that rolls out on the 13th, and from what I can see, you guys are busy on getting ready for what I assume is going to be Hard Fork 22?
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah. It surely seems like that SMTs will likely be Hard Fork 22. I'd be real surprised if there was another hard fork before that gets rolled out.
So are SMTs and communities going to come together, or is one going to follow the other?
So communities is independent of SMTs. SMTs can certainly complement communities, I think that's going to be a nice feature, but communities is absolutely independent of that. So communities could actually be rolled out before SMTs and without a hard fork. That's all non-consensus stuff. So
how close is that?
How close are communities, or how close are SMTs?
How close are communities?
So a lot of the back end work in HiveMind has been completed at this point. That's looking really good. Also, the initial API spec, both the design and some of the actual work in HiveMind for completing those APIs is done at this point. We also have had to come up with kind of an interesting approach for backwards compatibility, in that Condenser relies on an API call that called getState, which we've been trying to move away from for a long time. It kind of returns too much information. It gives you the whole kitchen sink. But Condenser is actually built around that functionality. So in order to get communities shipped as quickly as possible, we've come up with something that we're calling in HiveMind a bridge API, which will give Condenser all of the data that it needs to function today, but in a more minimal format. And we think that's going to lead to much faster development on the front end.
So one of the big questions that I hear being asked about SMTs is, what is the difference between SMTs and the steam engine, other than one is on the blockchain and the other was the side chain?
So that is kind of a simple way to put it. That is a good way to put it. SMTs are actually consensus, so they're actually on the blockchain. Steam engine tokens are not. It is kind of a side chain, and is non-consensus. The other big thing that about the difference between these two things is, if an exchange has already listed Steam, it'd be super easy for them to support SMTs at that point. So that seems like a really good path to actually getting SMTs listed on exchanges. Steam engine, I'm not going to say that that's not possible, because technically it is possible. An exchange could list those. It just seems a lot less likely and would be a lot more work for them to do. As right now, we already have at least 10 exchanges that have Steam active on them. And it'd be great to see a handful of those at least pick up SMTs shortly after launch.
Well, apparently one of the exchanges has one of the tokens from Steam Engine on it.
Oh yeah, which exchange is that? I'm curious.
Bittrex.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Which? Oh, if you've got PAL, you've just put it. Thanks, Jack. Just put it in the channel there.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I didn't know that they did that.
Jack noticed that last night, brought it to my attention.
I just clicked on the link. It says that it's not available in my market, so maybe that's not for the US yet.
That could explain. I brought it up last night on my screen, but then I'm not in the US.
Okay. I'll check it from a VPN later. I just want to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
I won't trade it, but I do want to see.
Yeah, it could be that it's international only.
Yeah, well, that's very cool. That's great. I mean, really, anything that helps Steam helps all of us. So, Steam Engine is a great product. There's nothing against it, and it really is not an SMTs versus Steam Engine thing. I see them as both different products that could offer different things.
Well,
and the more the merrier.
When I asked, it wasn't one versus the other, as much as what would the SMTs offer that the Steam Engine doesn't. That seems to be one big question.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. That's a fair question.
There's what it looks like, screenshot.
Thanks for that. Very cool.
So I'll come back to the question. What is the difference between the two? Some examples.
Well, the biggest example you had already named is one is on the blockchain, one is not, one is a side chain. I guess that's a tiny bit incorrect because technically Steam Engine tokens are on the blockchain. They're just non-consensus. Yeah, the ATS, David, you're right. Yeah, first layer versus second layer. That's another great way to put it. There certainly could be some other features that are different. It's hard for me to name exactly each one's because I'm not entirely familiar with what Steam Engine offers. We're pretty focused on SMTs and what we're building here, so I don't know that product very well, to be completely honest.
So they're pretty much going to have to wait until they're out, and then people can compare on their own.
Yeah. If I could call on Inertia, I know he's very familiar with the Steam Engine product. He might be able to help answer this question a little better since he's familiar with it.
Okay, Inertia, are you willing to come on?
Oh, hi there.
Hi.
Well, I was joking in chat that one big difference is that one exists.
That's fair. That's fair. These are certainly not here yet, but we're getting close, and it's looking attainable. So.
Yeah, and I guess in order, from the exchange's perspective, I agree that that there is more of an overhead requirement because you have to run, in order to do it the way exchanges do it for deposit tracking, they have to run their own Steam Engine node. Or they have to rely on the Steam Engine infrastructure that exists to do deposit tracking. So there is definitely more. It's not just a simple matter of running SteamD. But in terms of like what would the exchange do differently with Steam Engine tokens than any other token, really? Not really much. There's just technical hurdles to get over. Like they can't rely on custom JSON as the authority. They have to get that sidechain to confirm the transaction.
Okay. Is there any other?
So it's all technical, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to break it down to relatively easily understood terms.
I'm guessing, based on my look at the code in the past, that one big difference between SMT and Steam Engine is vesting is different. It's not that one doesn't have it and the other has it. It's different. If I'm not mistaken, they're going to be using a vest style token, right? So every SMT will have an SMT power, I guess. So and as a result, that makes distribution and it's not inflation. What's the term that we use with SMTs? Allocation. I don't know. So there are some subtle economic differences there.
Another difference might be the price it takes to actually list one, or to create one, rather. I'm not sure what the expense is with Steam Engine. Do you know what that might be?
I think it's still 100 ENG to create. So yeah, it could, SMT could be very competitive to that.
Yeah, that sounds likely. Okay.
Okay, well, we may actually be able to have a comparison here. Agro is here, so he could probably answer questions in regards to Steam Engine.
Yeah, Jack had a good question there too. That Steam is open source, but is Steam Engine open source? Is everything open source?
Okay,
yes.
hold on a minute. Agro, we were just having a discussion trying to kind of understand the difference between Steam Engine and the proposed SMTs. So you didn't walk into anything contentious, just a conversation.
Yeah. Yep.
Sure. So, hey, I'm not a dev, so Justin, if you want to chime in, feel free to correct anything I say. But basically, SMTs are going to be at the base layer, and steam engine tokens are not. Steam engine tokens live and through the Steam smart contract node, which is a second layer solution. So basically, when I want to see SMTs exist before I say exactly what they do, because it's sort of unfair to say what they are without them actually being here. But the way that we operate is the transactions go onto the Steam blockchain. The witnesses are the ones that are, putting together the blocks. That data lives in the standard Steam block data. If you go and look at you can go on like SteamDB or SteamD and look up any block, and you'll actually see our transactions that show up in the Steam blocks. What Steam Engine does is we actually we call it a side chain. There's some disagreement about is that the perfect term or not, but maybe subchain is a better term. I'm not exactly sure, but what we end up doing is we look at all the blocks and we say, okay, if it's not Steam Engine, ignore it. And if it is Steam Engine, we're going to put it in our own block, and we start making our own chain that's made up of a subset of data that's in the standard Steam blocks. And what the smart contract node does is basically just look for which ones of these are valid. And, we want to make sure that me or anybody else can't just randomly mint new tokens for ourselves. And so the node is checking for validity and making sure that, transactions are fair and they're not minting or moving tokens that they don't own. So the data is stored on the first layer, but the actual transactions and things moving are caused by the second layer. The Steam smart contract node itself is all open source data. And you can run the program, you can verify all the results that we're getting through our node, and you can see that Harpagon and Agro and anybody else that's involved, they're not like minting brand new tokens for ourselves. We're working on a peer-to-peer layer so that, instead of having we're extremely confident in the way that it works now, because it's all based off of the data from the witnesses. But we're also adding a second witness-like system, a peer-to-peer layer, to make it as even more decentralized. Where we're at, there's questions of, is it perfectly decentralized? And the answer is no. There's also questions of, is it decentralized enough for the feds when you're looking at like what laws apply and how does this supposed to work? And my attorneys are pretty strongly in favor of, hey, by the things that the feds look for, this is a decentralized exchange. And then there are people that are here that really want perfection, which is closer to what this peer-to-peer layer is going to add. But that's still, I think it's 2 weeks away from the test net, but this is development, so you never know exactly.
So one of the conversations I'm seeing taking place in the text here is a bit of a debate as to whether it's a fork or a side chain. And my understanding in the little bit of reading I've done, and keep in mind I'm not technical, so I'm going to do it real simple, is that a fork pretty much is shaking hands and parting ways, and they both continue to run on their own. Where a side chain is kind of shaking hands and saying, "Hey, we still need to work off you, but we're going to do a few things different."
I mean, I'm not sure it matters to go argue the semantics of this, and I'm probably not the person. Inertia's writing some comments in here. Classic fork makes me think you keep all the blocks in chain ID, so it's not a fork. Sidechain has different properties. I mean, I'm not sure it matters.
That was in relation to a comment that Jack made that he called it a classic fork.
I think the term is not really well defined. Like, it's, people talk about side chains, and side chains could really look like a lot of different things. So it's kind of hard to say that it's one or the other is what it sounds like.
When you look at our posts, we will typically start it by actually defining the terms, getting to the point that Justin just made, that like, there's not a set definition. There's no place in this decentralized crypto world that you can go and be like, what's the definition of a subchain? Or what's the definition of a side chain? Or like, there's not a repository of immutable facts of what these things are. So as a consequence of that, what we typically do is try to define the term as we're using it in the article, so that, rather than having to call it a layer 2 solution that does blah, 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 like we say it once and then we just call it a side chain. And whether or not it's the perfect definition of the side chain, we don't really care. We said this is what we're calling the side chain, and we're using that term. So people can get, I don't know, people can get fussy about it, but it doesn't, I just don't think that it matters all that much.
Now, Jack, you've brought that chart and dropped it in there, but some of the reading that I've done tells me that Bitcoin does not support sidechains, so it's not really a good comparison.
Yeah,
we're not a fork.
Right. I would tend to agree with that. From what I know about the product, I would not call it a fork. That doesn't make sense. What I would call a fork is the chart that Jack has dropped in there, talking about Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Diamond and all those and everything. I would call those forks of Bitcoin.
Yeah, we're not like a separate chain. Like the account names are the same, the passwords are the same. Like, you're putting blocks on the Steem blockchain. It's like the data is coming off of that. It's not like we forked Steem and ran off and did our own thing and built all this infrastructure. I mean, we're built on Steem. We're not a fork of Steem. We are on Steem. So and very proudly so.
Inertia says Bitcoin doesn't support sidechains, neither does Steem, as sidechain supports the main chain, not the other way around. That's probably something that somebody as technical as you are fully understands, Inertia.
So what are the other ways that we're different? I mean, we have a whole bunch of different. Again, when we built Steam Engine, we looked at the SMT white paper and said, you know what, we can get a lot of this stuff done now. Like, we can build tokens. Getting tokens up and running through this second layer thing isn't that bad. And then later on, a lot of this came out of Apex was making a fuss again, saying, hey, look, we're going to leave Steem, and we thought that would be bad. They had a $4.2 million ICO, and they run around and they market, and they seem to have nice connections. And so Matt was really like having this conversation and said, we can make this thing happen. We can make the side chain operate such that it can do this proof of brain distribution. And we basically looked at the SMT white paper, and we're familiar with a lot of the math that goes on for how the voting works and downvoting works and resource credits and like the entire how blockchain works. We have, a couple of the top witnesses, some really good developers, and we coded up and this is Holger 80's baby, but basically under the direction of Yabamat. This is how we can go build the distribution method. So the distribution method we call ScottBot. So the term SMT is a smart media token that lives on the base chain. We call our tokens Scotts. It's a bit of a ribbing towards Ned Scott in a friendly way, but it's also the term that I originally thought up was smart contract organizational token, because this is the entire point of these things are to build businesses and communities. And so those are organizations to me, and it's a token, and it's built on the smart contract node. So I didn't even think of the joke that it had anything to do with Ned Scott. Other people pointed that out to me later. I just called it Scott. Was
that by design? That was you actually named it because of Ned Scott?
No. That's what I'm saying is that afterwards, everybody was like, "Hey, you know that Ned Scott is the founder," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's pretty funny." So, like the little dude that we use for Scott, like I had picked him sort of randomly, and then when because it was like one of the few emoji dudes that was free and open source on Pixabay, and then I told Zaxxon, who helped me design with him, I'm like, all right, make his hair a little bit more like Ned. And again, it's definitely not directly meant to be Ned, but I am I'm a snarky guy, so I'm putting little things to rib at Ned, but again, it's not meant to be offensive or anything like that. It's just hey, I picked a term that has the same last name. He was at one point the face of this chain. So I'm just kind of ribbing at that a little. But
So,
anyways,
so just out of curiosity, I'm assuming, Justin, that the communities will be able to integrate the tokens in similar to how the tribes integrate the tokens into on Steam Engine.
Yeah, that seems likely. That seems like a likely outcome for communities, for them to be able to use their own token that way. I would imagine that for version 1, like as soon as communities is rolled out, probably not initially. It also seems likely that we'll probably have communities on steemit.com before we actually have a hard fork for SMTs. The SMT testnet might actually be up prior to that, though. So that could be being built at that point, and we could be getting ready to roll that out. That seems like kind of the likely chain of events as far as the timeline goes.
So I've added some thoughts on paper, but the like SMTs are a really robust protocol. They can do a lot of neat things, but they're going to do exactly one thing, whatever SMTs do. The Steam Smart Contract Platform is a smart contract platform that you can get any smart contract written. And what's a smart contract in this case? It's basically any if-then statement. So if you're looking for something that does exactly what an SMT does, then the SMT that's at the base layer is probably going to be pretty handy. But if you're looking for anything different, like recurring payments or like a different smart contract that we're going to do is NFTs, like the SMTs won't be designed to handle that, and they live at the core blockchain layer. So iterating onto this is going to be pretty heavy and hard. Because then you also have to get consensus of the witnesses and all that. It's like this giant production. And you also have to be a lot more careful with the code because, like, you know, if you screw something up and you stop the entire Steam blockchain, that's a giant freaking disaster. Whereas we're on the side chain, and yeah, we would certainly take some heat if the site goes down for any prolonged period of time. But it's not like the entire Steam blockchain stops. So, you know, we have a little bit more freedom, and we have a little, and it's like certainly way easier to code where we are. And because it's an entire smart contract platform, the whole idea is like right now we have tokens, token issuance. We have this like neat Python voting bot that can act like proof of brain. Now we have tools that use that kind of distribution pool to go do proof of stake that also does like this mining thing that we've been talking about, or that lots of people have like bought tokens for. But we'll keep adding other tools like recurring payments and NFTs are the two that come to mind that are sort of next up. And those things aren't going to be SMT functions, right? Because that's outside the SMT protocol. They might one day be added, but you know, you have to get 17 of the witnesses to consent and Steam it, or somebody else has to code it, and it's a big production. Whereas, you know, we just work with some of the devs that work with us and whip this stuff up.
Okay, so what I'm kind of hearing here is that the differences between SMTs and Steam Engine are not going to be major. There's going to probably be some different features on each one, but they're going to work in kind of in conjunction in the sense that they're going to exist and coexist without being a big issue.
I mean, my entire plan, I am not like afraid of SMTs. I'm going to embrace SMTs. I'm going to list SMTs. Like, you know, SMTs are going to have to like import into Steam Engine. It would be like getting a listing on any other exchange. You got to go bring them to the exchange. So I'll facilitate on my website creating SMTs. I'll facilitate listing SMTs if you create them that way. The Steemit blog made a post about, hey, if you have an SMT, you can then get on these exchanges, which is totally true. If they kind of like switch on these other things, the exchanges could list your SMTs a lot easier than they could list your Steam Engine tokens. But one of the things that the post failed to say is that it's going to be like the cheapest I've heard of is there's one exchange I've never actually heard of before was doing listings for 1 BTC. The names that you might know, like a KuCoin or like a Binance, like those things cost $150,000 to get on. So your SMT might actually facilitate getting listed easier than Steam Engine will. but it doesn't really matter unless you're sitting on $150,000, which most of the people in this community aren't. So one of the things about Steam Engine is that if you create this Steam Engine token or a Scott, it automatically lists on an exchange. That doesn't really happen anywhere else. So not only do you spend 100 ENG and get a token, you get 100 ENG, a token, and it's automatically listed on the exchange.
I think for the average user, they're not going to see the major stuff. The people that are running the tokens, they're the ones that are going to have to consider the things like you're talking about there. Jack has said congratulations on achieving your goals with getting PAL tokenized and listed on Bittrex.
Yeah. One thing I can say though, and having a lot of experience having worked with exchanges, is if SMTs really takes off, it'll start to be seen as kind of like an ERC20. And currently, when dealing with exchanges, it is way easier to get an ERC20 token listed, either for free or low expense, rather than your own blockchain that they actually have to take time to integrate.
Yeah, I would echo that too. Running an exchange, like the idea of trying to figure out how your random ass token works or your random ass cryptocurrency blockchain project works, getting our devs to get familiar enough so that they can list it, like that's a giant pain in the ass. And so they'll either tell you get an ERC20, maybe eventually Justin's right, and they'll say go get an SMT and we'll list that. Like I could see that happening quite easily because it's such a giant pain in the neck to try to list these other tokens.
Okay, so talking about tokens and exchanges, Eli, I've seen some questions out on the platform about, why are we not on Coinbase? Is that being worked on?
So the reason why we're not on Coinbase is because it's extremely expensive. I would say it's at least $100,000 to get listed.
That would do it.
What's that?
Okay, Engine's commented that Coinbase is a major game changer. I guess the underlying question there is that does it justify the cost?
Yeah, Coinbase would be a huge game changer. And I know that in the past people have reached out to them, but it's always just been, there's certain criteria as well as just a huge listing fee right now. So I guess where our stance is right now is we're listed on enough is that, is it worth the expense to get listed on Coinbase?
So Engine's also said needs to happen before Steam can go mainstream. Would you agree with that?
I mean, it's a valid point. It's just hard to say. We could, if we got on there tomorrow, you just don't, I can't really say for sure what would happen. It would be a game changer for sure, but again, I don't know the magnitude.
Okay, so Inertia responded to that by saying define mainstream, which is actually a pretty good question. And Dan has suggested Binance USA would be a biggie. Is that something that's in the offing?
I think that, was it this week we saw the post where in the U.S. We have reached out to them. I don't know if Justin, have you heard back from them on that?
Haven't heard anything back. The last that I heard is that we reached out to them to find out more about that. It could very well be the case that we are listed on the U.S. Binance, but we don't know the answer to that, or if there's anything that we need to do in order to make that happen. I don't think they've got back to us about that yet.
So it's like a lot of things, it's underway, but it's what type of communication's going on?
All right, so we, especially with the hard fork, have been in constant communications the last 2 weeks with exchanges. It's interesting. A particular exchange wrote back and said, wow, this looks like a lot of work to have to do this upgrade. We may now charge you a fee, because a lot of the exchanges, we didn't have to pay any fees. So really now you want to charge us a fee. So instead, we're working with them and creating more partnerships. So in lieu of a listing fee, can we do some co-marketing together? So relationships with exchanges, we are reaching out to them. We're trying to partner with them more. It's just all relationship building.
Okay, Ads David has asked why it wasn't pushed for when Steam was above $2.
I think that's a fair question. We had been trying to get listed on Coinbase for years now. I mean, I'm sure the people that have been around here for a while know that Coinbase had historically only listed a few coins. Like it was Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I guess it was Litecoin. And then they slowly started adding in some additional stuff. And I think we were in the queue to do that. Like we were trying to accomplish that. And there's just so many tokens these days that are trying to get listed. We're not at the top of the pick at this point. I think that's the fair answer to this question. It's not that we were not in communication with Coinbase and not trying to do it. It just never could be done.
Well, all you can do is try, and if they're not willing, then it's kind of hard to come back to. So, in amongst the comments that I've seen sliding by is the comment about the amount of Steam that Steemit is selling each month. And What's Up has made a counter comment here that she would argue that Steemit Inc. selling is creating distribution, and that's positive. Can't complain they hold too much stake, and also complain when they sell some stake. So I guess that brings me to the question, Eli. You have talked about the possibility that when the revenue on the advertising came up, that it would help to reduce that programmed selling. Is there any progress on that?
Well, I mean, sadly, you see where the price of Steam is today and where it has been the last couple of weeks. And so what that means is that is the amount of income we have coming in. So it's kind of the chicken and the egg at this point. If the price of Steam is low, that means the amount of money we have for operating expenses decreases. And so even if we are making more on ads, so is picking up. We are looking to bring on a full-time ads salesperson to really catapult the direct campaigns, because that's really where you get but with the price the way it is, we still have bills to pay. So hopefully the price can go up. I'm about to launch another press release as soon as this is over. We're trying to do more communications, the hard fork, like really promoting the DAO, because that's really going to be, we want people to take notice of that awareness. And then with the SMTs and community. So I feel like we're still limping along as far as revenue goes, as long as the price is where it is. But the ads revenue is improving, is increasing. But like I said, it's each other out at this point.
And yeah, it kind of comes back to how people respond to the ads on the platform. Yet you can't encourage them to click on them either.
Correct. Yeah, that would get us shut down. We're already having issues enough with Google wanting to ban us, so it's not as easy as people think. Our platform is so different, and not only is it difficult to integrate with all of these other networks, bidding networks, but then Google controls everything in the end, and so when we tap into these larger networks, more attention and eyes are on our site, and they find a lot of not safe for work content and so then they look at our site and take us down, and that dramatically decreases ad revenue. So full-time, all day, every day puzzle that we're constantly having to just make edits, add new tags so that ads aren't served on content, things like that. So it's interesting. Every day there's something new that happens.
So even though you've got options there on the not safe for work where people can actually not even look at that, that still becomes a problem.
Yes, because we have no way of knowing where all of that content is. I mean, people do tag it themselves, but not everyone posts. Not everyone tags it.
Yeah, and it's not something you can actually enforce, which prompts another question. The deporn tag, is that going to be treated the same as NSFW?
Which one? You cut out just a second.
The deporn.
Yeah, we've probably put a tag on that one. But we might start selling direct campaigns for I don't know, adult entertainment on that tag. Why not?
I meant treating it the same as the not safe for work, and that people can opt to not see it.
Correct. Yeah, we've probably already put a tag on there. I need to check in with Jonathan. He's our engineer that works on the ad stuff as well as communities and other things.
I know I came across one last week where the deporn was the first tag, and it didn't respond to it any different than any of the others. So unless it's been added in the last few days, probably not.
I don't know, Justin, do you know if that was included in the round of tags that Jonathan did?
To exclude ads on not safe for work content. I was actually going to ask the question: do you guys, while we're all here, do you guys know, are the deporn posts automatically tagged with the NSFW tag? Is that a thing?
They're not that I know of. Some of those posts could be about like business, though. They could be like, "Hey, look, we're marketing this thing." So not every single one has nudity that's involved in it.
Yeah, that's fine. Just the ones with like nudity and things like that would.
Yeah, so they've been, a lot of the people that are coming here are new, so they're not like full-time Steamians or crypto anything. They're just like nude enthusiasts. So as they come on, they're sort of individually training the people that are posting nudes to use the not safe for work tag. But I don't think it's like, there's not something in the nitrous instance or the condenser instance that automatically tags all posts with not safe for work.
Yeah, well, that's fair if there's a fair amount of them that are actually not safe for work. If most of them are not safe for work, then maybe that should be default, at least. If any, not just for us, but for other interfaces too, because I think all interfaces offer some kind of feature like that for filtering not safe for work content.
Yeah, and they're not the only problem. As I've looked into ads, we have like the weed guys too. So between drugs and sex, like that, those things go against Google ad policy. So even trying simple things like getting AdSense and getting Ad Manager or AdX or any of the other things, like that, they've been less than friendly towards us.
Surprisingly, we don't. As far as I know, there isn't any problem with the weed materials, especially these days with so much legalization going on across the United States. There's even a lot of ads for that type of thing too.
Yeah, we haven't been flagged for marijuana. In fact, one of the ad networks we use, they actually have a CBD ad network that we're going to start integrating. So that doesn't seem to be mostly just the porn.
So I wonder what Google's doing about the Canadian weed ads. Like maybe they're just allowed in Canada. So
I don't know.
Zipporah has asked, we're switching back to SMTs for a moment here. If a coin is created on Steam Engine, can its equivalent be created on the blockchain as an SMT? Crickets? Justin?
I'm sorry, can you ask that question again, Shadow?
She said, if a token is created on Steam Engine, can its equivalent be created on the blockchain as an SMT?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. You could create an SMT that's named the same as your previous Steam Engine token, I suppose. Yeah.
So that kind of begs the question. For example, I have the token Shade over on Steam Engine. Could somebody come over to the SMTs and create a shade?
They could. They indeed could, yes.
That's going to get interesting.
Yeah, you can peg them back and forth. So you can have like an SMT and list the pegged on Steam Engine. You could also conceivably have the token on Steam Engine and then have a pegged SMT. A lot of people think that these things are going to end up being like super competitive with one another, and I just don't think that's the case. I think they're going to end up being it's going to be pretty normal to have both of them. That is my guess.
Well,
I kind of hope that's the case. I want to see Steam Engine and SMTs both viable products for separate reasons. I think that'll be really cool to see.
Thing of it is, here's what, in my view, would create the problem. I've got the token Shade. Somebody gets ahead of me on SMTs and creates a token called Shade. How do I differentiate one from the other?
If it's on Steam Engine, it's going to have something like, we use in the industry for like how DEXs typically work. We have pegged tokens. The centralized ones allegedly have the pegged tokens. But that's the whole reason why they had like remove your coins from the exchanges day, because a lot of them were spoofing, because it's not a DEX and it's a centralized exchange. And, our centralized exchange has problems that it now takes 3 seconds to go wait for transactions. But on the plus side, you can actually track what's there and what's owned. But anyways, the way that these DEXs typically work is that you peg tokens. And so you're going to have a SMT, and then you'll have the Scott peg, or you're going to have the Scott and then a SMT pegged. And so typically if somebody isn't being, like on Steam Engine, when somebody made Bitcoin and it wasn't actually meant to be Bitcoin, it's just somebody being like, I'm going to make the Bitcoin coin, and we just took their name off the exchange. So the token still lives in the Steam smart contract platform, but we have the front end to this thing is very centralized. I own it. It's steamengine.com. That's mine. And so I took it down because I didn't want people to go get scammed. I don't know what the equivalent of that is on the SMT side, because it's all on the base layer. Maybe Steemit would hide a token if somebody's clearly being scammy with it. I don't know if they thought about those implications or what happens there, or what if somebody makes a clear security token and there's legal things. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do about it, but at least on our end, we can just take it down off the exchange.
Yeah, and what we're doing with SMTs too, how the naming works. Naming is non-consensus altogether. It's SMTs are actually listed by a numerical identifier, and the actual name of the token can be off-chain altogether. Our thought, what's spec'd out right now is running some kind of a DNS-like service that allows you to look that up. So there could be multiple centralized authorities that would be your go-to for what the name of that token actually is. That way, if there's some kind of a mistake or something later, like somebody does register a token that probably shouldn't have been registered under that name, it could actually be changed later. And that's actually how it works with ERC20s too. They're actually on-chain with Ethereum. They are actually a numerical identifier. They're not actually named on-chain. So same concept there.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, if somebody tried to grab the name of a token on Steam Engine, they would have difficulty doing that?
Right, let's say, somebody registers the Pepsi token, and then later Pepsi actually, the real Pepsi is trying to create their token, then that could actually be fixed at that point. It kind of solves the problem with name squatting, and we're actually looking to a similar solution for naming of communities, because it's likely we're going to run into that same problem with communities. And that really is the best way to fix it, is to have the names off-chain.
going to be interesting times. So I saw Eli put a comment out here. Correction, Coinbase, we were not offered to be listed via 100K fee. That was another exchange. Either way, we do want to be listed on Coinbase and have in the past reach out to them, and she will follow up. So we're back to some questions going on about the SMTs. One of the questions is, what will the projected planned cost of creating an SMT be?
Yeah, I was trying to type out a response. I was actually going to ask ATS David. I don't remember right off because I have to keep track of a lot of things. Would you mind looking in the white paper for all of us and see what it says in there? Likely that's what it'll be, unless we want to change that. But that's probably likely.
And what happens with that money? So, yeah, I think it's either 3 SBD or 10 SBD. Either way, to me, it struck me as like ridiculously small. When that money is spent, is that burnt? Does that go to Steemit? Does that go to SPS? Like, where would it go?
Yeah, no, in the original spec, it gets burnt. It's just like with the 10 SBD that you have to put up in order to create a proposal on the proposal system. That gets burnt, and it's the same for the spec for SMTs. And yeah, I agree. 10 SBD probably is a little low. So if that's what it says in the white paper, we might want to consider revisiting that.
Actually, I think they're saying that it said 3 SBD in the white paper.
Does it? Yeah, that sounds pretty low to me. We might have had some reasons for that, which I'd really need to discuss with the rest of the team, just in case there was some edge case or something, some reason why that's a thing.
I mean, I'm dying to see that cost be higher. I know not everybody agrees with me, but you know, there's only a limited number of people that are ever going to create tokens here. I would argue that we need burn cases for Steem. Having them be platform wide would be exceptionally important to me. And like creating a token is such a wonderful opportunity because like typically somebody really only does it once. So, you know, like I don't want it like Ethereum where every transaction you have to have a gas fee or something. And that's a giant pain in the ass. But if at these kind of milestone moments that are pretty infrequent, there's a large burn, like even if we could just get 5% of the inflation pool kind of burnt off by doing this, you know, what I think ends up happening is that you have people that are selling, somebody comes along, buys off the weakest hands in the market and then burns it. Like that's really good for our price. Even small amounts of burn could go a really long way to adjusting how much the overall value of Steem is.
Yeah, I'm personally myself, I'm all for more burn cases, more things that we can, more ways we can find for people to burn Steem. Generally is a great idea, probably.
Okay. So, Eli, hard fork coming up. You've been working with exchanges. Is it something that is press release worthy that you would be doing public relations on?
Absolutely. Like I said, I have one ready to go right now because I think the proposal system, see that thing take off, and I want to see people submit proposals and vote for them and create development out of that, or a marketing campaign through the SPS. So I think that's particularly Ethereum's DAO, and there doesn't seem to be one out there that functions the way the SPS does.
So you've got a lot to talk about that people don't know about.
Exactly, and I think it's so what we're doing is I'm going to use today PR Newswire, and we can be selective so that we're focused on the right people, and so it'll go to tech markets, to every media outlet, to their tech writer. And so, for example, we sent one a couple of weeks ago, and through the dashboard, it reached, had the potential reach of 90 million people. And we do see, every time we do these releases, we see an uptick in traffic. So this one is a little bit more, I think, newsworthy. We try to make it more consumer friendly, less tech. I mean, it is a hard fork, but I don't know what that is, I wouldn't think.
So that podcast that we were talking about 2-3 weeks ago, did you try firing one of those press releases off to him?
Which podcast you cut out? I'm sorry.
That podcast you and I were talking about 2-3 weeks ago, Joel Com.
Yeah, so what I also have, aside from PR Newswires, I do have a list of projects and media that we send to separately, and they're on that list. And I am someone from that podcast. It was a female connected now on LinkedIn.
She was a guest on the podcast. She's a tech writer.
Yes, you are correct.
Yeah. But she made the comment.
So yeah, so we
Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
reached out to her. Yeah, once you sent that my way, I reached out to them and sent LinkedIn requests, and that one particular person, she did accept. I didn't hear back from the other guys, the main show host.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see if they finally bite. So the next thing I'm going to move on to is, you want to release your button, Eli? There we go. The RC delegation pool, is that going to come in the next hard fork? Does it need a hard fork? How's it going to work?
That is part of the spec for SMTs, so that would be included in the SMT hard fork. To answer the question, yes, that feature could be released in a different hard fork, but we're already having a hard fork that's already done. I mean, the release is made for hard fork 21, so naturally that'd be in the next one, which probably will be SMT, so it seems likely.
So that's David has asked, projected date for the hard fork 22, early 2020?
Yeah, so it's looking like, according to our burn-up charts right now, which appears to be pretty accurate, we pretty much nailed that. It's looking like we should have SMTs ready to go on a testnet like late September. So we're looking at around a month, maybe a month and a half before we can actually start to do some testing on a testnet. Now, of course, that could change. That could be delayed. You never know what comes up. But right now, it's looking real good. It's looking more attainable and closer than it ever has before. I'm personally feeling really good about it. So I like that. It's hard to give a specific date. I'd hate to give a date and us not hit it. But hey, everyone can see what we're working on and see seeing what's being committed to GitHub too.
So the other comment that David has made is about robust testing of it. Is it going to be comparable or more so than hard fork 21?
Yeah, and so we put that in one of our recent posts too, that we believe that this would require a longer testing period than previous hard forks. For hard fork 21, we recommended at least like a 30-day test net. I think we wound up getting more of a 45 to 60 day out of it or something like that. But yeah, I think we're thinking along the lines of like kind of a 90-day test net. There's also going to be a lot of other things to do with the SMT hard fork, like the work required for like updating client libraries and some other front end related work. There's just a lot more preparation that needs to be done. And same with other applications too. They're going to be using them. They're probably going to want to be building their applications and testing them against the test net for quite a bit longer than previous hard forks, I would say. That could always be adjusted too. Like if it looks like we really want to push SMTs out the door and everyone's feeling really confident about it and everyone thinks that it had plenty of testing, whenever that time is, like us, not just us as Steam Incorporated, but like us as a community and us as witnesses and us as developers, if everyone thinks it's ready, whenever that point is, we could set a 30-day date to a hard fork date at that point. That's pretty much the minimum. We just got to give exchanges and witnesses a 30-day heads up. We got to cut a release and give them 30 days to update. So
basically, it's a soft target of early 2020, but could be earlier.
Right. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think everyone will be feeling a lot better about this topic once SMTs are actually on a testnet.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that, like Hard Fork 21, anyone who feels confident enough to do some testing, they can do so.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the more hands, the merrier. Indeed.
That makes sense. Interesting times. We've certainly seen a whole lot more development in the last, almost 9 months since last November than we've seen prior to that. So I know one of the other things that people do a lot of complaining about is the Steemit.com front end. I'm assuming that you probably have some plans in place to doing some changes.
Yeah, what I'd really like to do is get that cleaned up to where we can open it up and make it a public repo. And I was really hoping the community could chip in with that. A lot of people have some really great suggestions for it, and I'd like to see those put in. The only reason that hasn't happened yet is the state that it's in. The Steam.com site, this is almost embarrassing to mention, but it was created with WordPress. It was originally a WordPress site, and then it's statically generated from that WordPress site as a static site. So that makes it really difficult for people to make edits manually to that, because once someone makes an edit manually, it can no longer be edited in the WordPress installation. What I'd really like to see, but unfortunately we just don't have the bandwidth right this moment to do it, is get that converted to something like Jekyll or something that can that would be easy for people to make pull requests to and get that updated. And then I think we'd see a lot more changes to that site as a result. One thing we did do is we updated the About page, because we did have a lot of complaints about that. But as far as like a complete overhaul of that site, I don't see that immediately happening. But I'm hoping that we can get around to this sometime soon, hopefully.
So, with all the tags and the tribes that are going on at the moment, what would it take to get Steemit.com accepting more than 5 tags?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think we've discussed that much internally yet. We just have to talk about it. I don't want to make any commitments to that before we discuss it.
Yeah,
I know that's been lately with all these other tokens and people wanting to use like 100 tags, like spammy posts with hundreds of tags to collect all these tokens.
Well, most of the front ends are using 10. SteamPeak is using 10. So, if you could move it from 5 to 10, it'd probably make a big difference.
Very possibly. That could be a fair compromise, potentially.
Yeah. I know myself, I prefer to use Steemit.com for putting my posts up, but I quite often want to go beyond the 5 because I want to also use some Steam tags as well. So that means that I then have to hop over to another front end in order to be able to add those tags.
It sounds like a little bit of an inconvenience. I'm sorry about that.
It is. But I prefer to keep using the Steemit.com, so I just thought I'd bring it up. And actually, I've heard some other people mention it, so it's not just me.
Yeah, I have heard some mentions about it, so we've certainly seen it. It obviously hasn't been the highest priority for us, and I guess it just recently kind of popped up that people have been asking for that. So we'll have to take some time to talk about it. On front end work, we're just really don't have much extra bandwidth to spare right now. We're just really ultra focused with trying to ship the things that people have already been waiting on us for quite some time now.
I have no idea why these little changes should not be a priority. Laugh. As David has said, by the way, although I don't always agree with Steemit Inc. and am often critical, I do appreciate the much improved communication, at least the amount of it, not always the substance of it. It's not often that David throws out a compliment.
I agree, and I sincerely appreciate that. Thanks for that compliment. That's big coming from you.
That's why I made sure that it got read out.
I know your feedback is sometimes pretty critical, David, but it's sometimes you tell the truth. So sometimes it's good stuff too.
Yeah, this is true. Honesty is always better. So, Eli, I'm going to give you one more kick at the cat. Is there anything I have not asked you about that you wanted to talk about?
Let's see. So, things I just again want to, appreciate the compliment regarding communication. I think one of the things that people really like to see is the SMT burn-up posts. Those have made their way back. I've talked to you as well as other foundation members about this ambassadors program, some email marketing. So I guess really the main thing is that pretty much in place, even though, like I said, we're constantly, whether it's Google bans or this or that or the other, and some efforts more towards some marketing and outreach and public relations. It's just important. I want to reiterate to everyone that we are doing those things are always top of mind. It's just a matter of bandwidth. But I feel like we've made some progress there. I believe once we get the ad sales person in place, one particular person I'm looking at does have good marketing, good email marketing, and social media experience. So I'm hoping that person can kind of come in and roll up their sleeves and be a jack of all trades. I mean, obviously, number one, sell a ton of ads, good ads. Last but not least, we're looking at SteamFest. So trying to make our plans for that. We are sponsoring again this year. We've also done, hopefully y'all have seen some of Roland's ads on steamit.com. I think they look really, really good. Let's keep our heads down. Let's work on SMTs and communities. Obviously, that's got to be a huge, we need to be in a good place before, we could send the whole team. So yeah, we're just still working on plans for that, helping Roland promote it, things like that. So no, I mean, I think we're in a good space. Has really been knocking it out of the park, as Justin brought to my attention this week and last. The back end, we weren't expecting to be as far along at this point as we are. And then the blockchain team, they've been just really going like gangbusters on SMTs. So, yeah, I think that's it on everything that's happening at Steemit Inc.
Okay, so I certainly appreciate you and Justin taking the time to join us today. It's always good to know what's going on as much as possible. And I did see a post this morning that apparently you're going to be busy on air today, that you're going to be 3 o'clock over in MSP.
That is correct.
Okay.
So, yeah, so probably be very similar to this conversation. Just a general update for that show around the block. However, it's in, I think we have an hour, you said.
Yeah.
2 hours.
45 minutes now.
Yeah.
There's a question there I don't quite understand, but I'm going to toss it out. Does Steemit Inc. have a plan to counteract against the ongoing devaluation of Steam through the fractioning and tokenization?
I don't think we understand the question. What do you mean by fractioning and tokenization?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is either. So somebody suggested that we shouldn't hate David, @David. I'm going to let everybody know that I don't know of anyone who actually hates @David. So we'll work on that. All right.
Yeah, I think the question is more geared towards like things like tribe tokens and things like SMTs are devaluing Steam because people are selling the Steam to go purchase those tokens. So that, I mean, to me, these things are use cases. It's like, hey, if I can buy bread with a US dollar and I give away my dollars for the bread, does that mean that I have devalued US dollars? I mean, I think it's just more use cases. And unlike the bread example, like if people want to go use tribes or use SMTs, they're going to need resource credits. So you're actually going to have some minimum about some minimum amount of steam if you actually want to do these things. So, and if they actually burn steam to make their SMT or burn SPD, then that too is driving demand for these things. So I don't know. I don't think that the tokens are ruining America, ruining Steam, and ruining Christmas. I mean, I think they just give more use cases.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that too. If anything, I think, especially in the case of SMTs, that people who want to create SMTs, it's actually going to create a demand for Steam and Steam power, because you still need Steam power in order to have RCs in order to interact and do things with your SMT. So people who want to do SMTs on a large scale will actually have to buy in and stake and keep it powered up in order to function properly. And especially if they have a large community, then they may want to be using the RC delegation feature in order to make sure all of their users can also interact.
So one of the things that we came across in PYPT not long ago, we do need to caution some of the newer users that they actually do need to build up their Steam power before they start trying to buy into tokens. And the reason being is they won't have enough resource credits. So like you said, that's a use case for Steam. They need to build up their Steam before they start playing with tokens. So that's certainly not taking away from Steam.
Yeah, I think there could be a time where that becomes the primary use case for Steam Power Act. A lot of people keep talking about, and this is not a bad idea. Eventually, I think we might actually get to this, where rewards and like proof of brain actually could be eventually removed from the base layer from Steam itself, and then like Steam.com would actually use an SMT, or everyone else would use an SMT, and then the base token no longer actually has those types of features. Now, obviously, it'd be a bad idea to do that in the first iteration of SMTs, but depending on how it goes and what experiments happen with SMTs, something like that seems like that could eventually become the case.
That makes sense. We've talked about the decreasing supply of Steam that's going to be coming in future years, so there has to be something that comes in over top of it. So that makes total sense.
Right. I mean, that's one way to decrease it right there, is to remove the rewards pool from it and start rewarding on an SMT instead. It actually does make a ton of sense. But we're not there yet. Of course, for the version 1, we wouldn't want to actually remove that from the base token. We're not there yet.
I was just going to say, before anyone gets carried away with that statement, that's not happening in the near future.
No, absolutely not. But who knows? That could be hardcore 23 or 24. Like that could be in their future. Just looking way ahead. Yeah.
Go for it, Justin. Get some controversy going. Okay. Thank you, Justin. And I was going to move to the witnesses, and apparently this is a good time since Aggro's at the top of the list. As David wants to know if you've been asked why the selection for the delegation team in light of your previous statements about wanting to get control of Mr. Delegation.
I mean, I've wanted to do that for over a year. I mean, I thought that it was being used poorly. So I wanted to make sure that it was being used better to go support this ecosystem. We need to go bring more businesses and more communities here. And some of the ways that it's being used, I'm just certainly not. I think that there could be better delegations. And I think not just the better delegations, but I do think that having a process where people get to weigh in and people get to go see, and it's not, to me, those delegations were always what was Ned's whim at the time. And that's like the worst process I ever could have imagined. What I want is something that has like, here's this open, clear pathway. Anybody in the community can do it. It gets publicly evaluated. It gets privately evaluated. Steemit still gets, final say on these things. And I'd also just add that look, man, I don't have keys to this thing. It's an advisory committee. So we can make recommendations, and I hope that Steemit goes with them. We're going to work our asses off to make sure that these are the best places that you can go put a delegation to help grow new businesses and help accelerate the growth of existing businesses. But at the end of the day, this is Steemit's stake, and it's their ultimate decision of whether or not they go with us in our decisions or not. So it's an advisory committee. It's not like I don't have the keys. I'm not asking for the keys. I don't think it's appropriate. It's their stake. I'm not asking for anybody else's keys. It's an advisory committee, and I think I make one hell of an advisor for what should happen on Steam.
I do recall the statement being made quite clearly in the announcement that Steam It Inc. would reserve the right to override any decision by the delegation committee. So, like you said, advisory.
Yeah. Unless I have keys, it's an advisory role, and I'm happy for it to be an advisory role. And I hope that me, Eon, and Stalkers are going to be able to bring like a lot more to this, both transparency and just making the process better. And honestly, the big one to me is just opening up the whole damn thing. I mean, I don't know how any of those other delegations ever happened, but there wasn't like public posts and public discussion, and then things happened. It was always like, oh shit, these guys got a delegation. How did that happen? Like whose balls did you have to fondle to get that? I mean, it shouldn't be that way. It should be, here's the process, here's the application, here's the requirements, and like everybody in the entire ecosystem knows what they are. Yeah, there was no rhyme or reason. So and okay, that's where it started. But I think that this is a chance to go do it a better way.
Yeah, I think we kind of feel the same way about it too. Like, is this perfect? Probably not. Is it better than what we had? Yeah, absolutely. It's at least a start on a new process, which is great. Doing something is better than doing nothing.
So, Agro, other than Steam Engine, is there anything that you wanted to add here today that you want the people that are present to be aware that you've been up to?
I mean, I'm up this stuff all the time. I'm trying to go get ads on all the Steam Engine tribes so that we can all make money.
Engine.
Well, but that's something different. I mean, like
Okay.
What I really want people to know is that like my entire business plan is like, if I can help these other people make money, then I'll make money too. And what Steam has this problem that you can only get rewarded for your content for 1 week. And like the YouTubers don't want to come here, and it's a challenge. And so one of the big things that I'm working on is trying to figure out how do we get ads to go run on the tribe so that people can make money like they do on YouTube over longer periods of time. So that's one of my central focuses there, trying to get more account history and a better upgrade to Steam Engine. Steam Monsters, we're selling out of the beta packs. There's only like 178,000 left or less. So we're down to 20% of those.
Let's see what we got. Little update on what Follow BTC is doing. Okay, she'll type it up. So I will ask Deranged if you want to say anything about the coffee/deranged witness.
We don't really have anything big going. We're running the new hard fork on our witness. Other than that, everything's going good.
Fantastic. Let's see who's here. Is Engine here? I don't see him. He must have dropped out. Engine might have dropped out. Gandalf, is he still in? Yes, he is. Care to give us a little update on what you got going on? Hard fork is coming. That's just a rumor. Please take part in testing, he's asking. Do you happen to have a link for the testnet? Good question, because it would be helpful to get more bodies over there to see how it handles loads. I'm not sure how much we can get. Thank you for dropping that. There's a little link to the... That was helpful. Who else do we have on our list? Let me scroll back up. Guilty. If you want to start typing, if you're here. Let us know what you got going on. Is Carrie still in? Yes, she is. Can you, Carrie, can you come on and speak at all to what Helpy's got going on there, Witness?
Hey guys, it is I. We're doing basically the same things. I was just trying to grab that link for anybody else that's trying to do it. This is how to update to the hard fork for 21. I know that we're currently running that, doing all the testy stuff. I keep saying testies, it's funny. Sorry, I'm 12. But yeah, so Eon is doing that. He was taking care of that, and it's being run with Shane, who is Swelker 101, another one of our Helpy Witness team members. So yeah, we've been doing that. Still going strong with our curation thing. I don't know. Yeah, we've kind of we've stopped doing like regular weekly meetings to focus more on our curation. It's really fun. We have like special rooms for the curators. We do try to keep an eye on things. I do want to take this moment real quick. If anybody notices anything that is weird, everybody's human. I get messages sometimes, and people they're so strange. They're all like, clearly Helpy upvoted this and they knew what they were doing and they're horrible people and they should go to hell. And I'm like, slow your roll. We're all just humans, and someone maybe didn't do their due diligence, and all you have to do is be nice and let us know, and we take care of it from there. And it's only happened a couple of times, but I do just want to remind everyone, everybody's human. Sometimes people fuck up, and that's okay, and we deal with it, and then we move on. And so we've had, I think twice this has happened where something got upvoted and it probably shouldn't have, but we did take care of it. Other than that, it's a slow going, moving thing. Yeah, I think everything's going pretty well for us. We're still open. It's still an invite-only community, but if people reach out to us and they want to join, if they hang out in the Discord for a while, be happy, play in Grumpy Chat, and then they're interested in curating, that's basically what we do. We're not as stringent as the other places for curating. We're more laid back, and we want to give everybody a chance who wants to share with that, rather than being like, here are the rules for curating. But of course, we follow basic rules that everyone else does as well. So if anybody has questions, you can ask. I didn't really plan to do an update. I totally forgot today was Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? No, it's Tuesday.
Oh, it is Wednesday. It is Wednesday. So to sum up, there were some ups that were fucked. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I think 2 in the last like 3 months or something. And so, and like it was so funny because like it wasn't a big deal. And like there was another instance where something was brought to my attention and the person was a little crazy about it. And when I did all the research, turned out that person was just in general crazy in their life, and they hadn't done their actual due diligence and checked. And as it turned out, the person was totally, everything was on the up and up, and they were going to the right places. So always maybe take a deep breath before you get all pissy about something, and do that little research. But if you don't, again, that's what I'm here for. So do let me know, and I will take the time to check everything out and make sure everybody understands what we're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. So I actually do have a question for everybody so far, and maybe and for those that are coming up, can anybody let us know how your results with the testnet have been going so far? If you could just bring it up when we get to your turn, or if anybody has something they want to say that I've already skipped. I think there are people who are curious to hear how the testnet is going and if there are any issues or whatnot that are being addressed. Where on the list are we in terms of witnesses? Jack, you're up next. Give us a little something.
Jack has it written out.
Oh, yeah, I see. Jack said he'd like to hear more from me on the STEAM Foundation, our STEAM Community Foundation. Mr. or Ms. Speaker, whoever's presiding, I hand over my 5 minutes to him, me. Why? Well, it's as much mine as it is any other STEAMians, the foundation. So yeah, the stage is yours, Bluefin. I'll catch up to you, Krim, in just a sec. I'll go back and read it out loud so it gets into the recording. Quick update on the foundation, since you asked. We are at the 1 yard line, ready to score, if you forgive the sports ball parlance, in terms of getting our legal foundation all finished up. We met yesterday to discuss the 2 committees that are going to be first. The first one is the marketing committee, and the second one is the, what's it officially called? Is it development or fundraising? I can't remember.
Development and investor relations.
Development and investor relations. Thank you, both Guilty and Shadows. So the posts will come out, the minutes will come out as a post tomorrow, and as well, there will be posts in the next day or so about the actual descriptions of the committee, sort of a call to action. Please, we'd like your help, and we'd like you people to apply to be on these committees. We really want these committees to be community focused. There's a dozen committees, but the first two that we're talking about are the development and investment relations is one, and marketing is the second one. You should see that come out in the next day or so. It looks like Woody is here, so I'll ask, because I skipped over you. Can you type or come on voice if you want, and let us know what you're trying? Okay. Voice is not working. So at this point, let me go back and grab what Krim wrote. The Follow BTC is here as always, same old to some degree. We're maintaining our projects, a number of community resources, which span sites, hosting, scripting for things like Steam Chat, a number of websites and services through MSP and PAL and or standalone, like Steam Tipper, as well as for other committees. We put a lot of our rewards into other community support stuff, but mostly I'm stuck doing testing right now and skinning some sites. I also do community broadcasting about 5 hours a week live. You can contact myself or Jeff on any of your preferred mediums if you need help or have questions. She also said something else further down. Also, if you need help building Steam without using Syab, I'm happy to work with you if you want to try it out. Thank you, Krim. Thanks for the update to Follow BTC News.
We've got Matiyari and Neoxion. I haven't heard them yet.
So up first, let's have Matiyari.
And she's typing something.
And hopefully, Engine, if you can't come on voice, if it's being wonky, can you give us a little update on what you're up to? And anybody who I skipped, feel free to hop in. I do want to hear if you guys have run into any issues and how you're seeing the results on the testnet.
Okay, Mata Hardy is just listening. Neoxion, can you come on voice? And he's typing. Thank you, Blue. So we're coming up on a time when if there's anything that the audience here would like to bring up that hasn't already been covered or they want to add to, go ahead and type it into the Neoxion says no voice, sorry, but working on his bank and his tribe. Two main projects he's upgrading his witness probably is a weekend project. I'm assuming you're upgrading to 21, or are you going to 20.12?
Hard fork 19. 21.
I believe AdGrowth said something about there was a version 20.12 that if you really didn't want to go to 21, you could do that. All right. Frank says, speaking about burn-in, will the Steemit promotion feature ever see a rework? Justin, are you still with us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep. I can hear you.
You can hear me now. Okay, great. Sorry, I had switched to headphones. I was multitasking and I was answering some questions for an exchange that's trying to do the upgrade to Hard Fork 21. So I didn't actually hear the question, but I am still with you guys. What can you repeat the question?
So Frank has asked if the Steam promotion feature we'll ever see a rework. Excuse me. And Agrode is added to that, and we might as well include that. Would that rework include something like burn Steam and get promoted on the trending page instead of a promotion page?
It could. That's something that we have talked about a little bit. And I think we weren't quite ready to implement that, but that certainly could be the case where we could rework the existing blockchain promotion feature, which is actually, that's a feature built into Steam where you burn Steam to get on that promoted list. Some ways where that could be implemented would be maybe like interspersing some of those promoted posts within the trending posts. I kind of feel like with communities coming out, trending will become less and less of a thing. And there'll probably be less focus on trending. So it may not be quite as important as you think it is to implement something like that. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm just kind of curious why, even with communities coming out, the trending would become less of a thing. You know, you need something that's going to attract people when they hit the platform before they're actually in a community.
Right, absolutely. But if there are good communities with good content, why not display some of those on the front page instead of just the trending page?
Sort of popular in communities type thing?
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of other websites are doing similar things. Like even Reddit does something kind of like that. If you go to the front page, you see a lot of different content from subreddits and not like an overall trending. Kind of the way I think of it is what we have right now on Steam. It kind of works like one giant community where like everyone's in one bucket together. And with communities, everyone won't need to be all in that same bucket, and we'll have more condensed ways to actually view content. I think it's going to make content discovery on Steam a whole lot easier and make a whole lot more sense, especially for the mainstream. Because right now with the one bucket tactic, you know, we have a lot of, I mean, to be completely honest, we have a lot of weird people on Steam. We're all pretty weird. We have some very specific interests. A lot of it's very cryptocurrency focused, and that's often not what mainstream social media users are really looking for. And I think a way to separate that is really the ultimate answer for content discovery, and not necessarily like reworking a trending page. I think we all do like the idea of burning Steam for promotion, though. I think that makes a ton of sense, especially since that's built into the blockchain currently.
Yeah, it does make a ton of sense. And, you know, a trending page that actually shows some diversity of what the platform has is not a bad idea either.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Sure.
So, go ahead.
I have a question for, I know there was a discussion earlier, I apologize for missing it, but I don't believe this part was ever asked or answered. I hear a lot about SMTs. How will they actually make a difference for Steam, for the platform? What actual effect will SMTs have on the platform? I'm curious.
Can you be more specific?
I keep saying let's all wait for SMTs. I keep hearing that SMTs will be something that will really help make it easier for investors or for users to get on board, or that it will help the share value, the price value. I just don't understand how. I don't know what the effect is.
Well, I think it's hard to anticipate exactly what the effect will be until it's actually released, or until we're close to release. The SMTs certainly can be attractive to businesses that have been looking for a blockchain solution, and especially a more advanced one like Steam, where you have 3-second block intervals and almost instantaneous transfers. Things like that you can't get right now with other blockchains that you could create your own token on. So in other words, why create your own blockchain from scratch when you get all the advanced features of Steam essentially for free by creating your SMT here, as opposed to, say, creating an ERC20 on Ethereum or something to that effect.
So what's up is said.
Is that helpful? I'm sure that probably doesn't actually answer your question, but
well, I mean, so the mechanics of
it's hard to answer.
I guess the mechanics of how this helps is, I mean, the short answer is we don't know. There is no real way to know, I guess, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Which I understand. I understand.
I think as far as average users go, like the so-called mainstream that we want to adopt, I think communities is probably the feature that they're really looking for. But I think SMTs really definitely add a ton of value and will probably add a ton of interest to Steam. But more so for businesses and developers and things of that nature. Which can also bring end users here, of course, as well, through those businesses that are trying to kickstart on Steam.
Hopefully it will create a little bit more interest in the blockchain and what's going on. I think the combination of SMTs and communities would have more possibilities.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we're talking about a combination of effects here.
Okay.
All right. Is there anything else anybody would like to bring up before we start moving on? I see Engine typing away. Gecko is typing away. He says, with SMTs, you can start a business with no relation to Steemit. All you need is enough RCs. The rest is completely independent.
But you can't get the RCs without having a relationship to Steam.
Yeah, you've got to have Steam to have the RCs. Just RCs.
So when we were going through the list, Shadows, we did have, we did miss Engine. I'm not sure if he typed anything.
Yeah, he said he didn't have voice, but I've seen him typing a couple of times, but I don't know whether he's preparing something to drop in or what he's doing. He'll have his option. Does anybody else get anything that they would like to toss out there? Everybody getting ready for Hard Fork 21 and you know, making sure that the platform continues. Who's going to do increased curation once Hard Fork 21 comes in? Who's going to spend more time on it? Am I getting crickets? Steam QA says he's gonna. Neoxan says he already creates very much. Deranged is always curating. Anybody else tossing in there? And who's going to do more posting? Or creating content, I should say. Roger's going to do...
I would say I would.
What, more posting or more curating?
I will try to do more posting, but the short answer is I'm going to post at my, you know, as much as I can and see how things are affected. I have limited time. I can't possibly do any more curating than I already am now. That's just a function of what I'm doing. My RCs disappear after a certain amount. So there's only so much curating you can do. And
so is there anybody in the room that is looking at Hard Fork 21 and saying, you know, I really don't want to post. I'd rather just curate? What's Up says she is. Zipporah, you had better say that because we need you posted. Gray says he hardly posts anymore. Steam QA doesn't post much to begin with. It's going to be interesting to see how it changes the traffic on the platform in regards to the volume of posts. Duraine's just going to keep doing his thing. Snook wants to be posting more. Grace says, unless you have a lot of people following you, what's the point? Yeah, that would be nice if the shit posting stops. Okay, so here's Engine. Going to try and update this weekend. Already made adjustments to curating within the fam. Hopefully they're already noticing a little. It's making me a little pissy seeing how long it's going to take with the replay. Oh, that's on the upgrade. My posting habits will not change. Still have to provide that nonsense my 10 commentators of the 3,500 followers I have, so you know. Okay? Hive says he has nothing to post. Brackenbart is asking the question, why should there be curation of posts and a mechanism to essentially pay people to find good content? Well, I don't know. People find good content on places like Facebook and Twitter without getting paid anything. So it sounds like they're sharing the work. Bluefin says he's going to upvote the shit posts to help buy his Lamborghini. Snook says she's here to write. The money is nice, but I don't fit any groups, so I'll still be doing what I'm doing. And Engine has asked, how will the new flagging sit with people?
So my question is this. I don't know, I mean, newbies don't get into it because they're trying to get their head around the whole place. Somebody with, let's say, 1,000 SP, something like that. I don't know, put them at somewhere in the high 50s or something. They have 1,000 SP, something like that. I think that they're going to be very reluctant to be flagging anybody with a large reputation or anybody connected with a large amount of, whether they have a good friend that's connected that has a large, they're going to be reluctant to flag somebody because it'll start the flag wars 2.0 or 3.0. We've already had flag wars 2.0. So I'm not sure how much the flagging, the new 2 free flags is going to help. Unless it just is the, Curie and the other dozen large accounts that have banded together that will be now flagging.
Yeah, my suspicion is that if there's any amount of flagging going on, it will prove out the old adage of shit runs downhill. The big ones are going to be flagging the smaller ones.
Exactly.
So
I personally think the most common thing that we'll see more of flagged is content that's been voted up by bidbots. And maybe some of the larger stakeholders who right now are not wanting to use their downvotes because it actually burns their voting power or voting mana, will be more likely to do that because they'll have some for free. So they'll want to put those somewhere, and the obvious place for those to go is for content that's been inflated artificially.
yeah, I hope if that's what they're going to do, they're going to hit the ones that are doing a lot of the inflating. Because I've seen this happen before where people have, I'm going to start flagging people that are using bid bots, and they flag the little guys. Like, go after the ones that are spending, 50, 60, 100, 200.
Yeah, and I think we'll have an interesting effect with that too, if that turns out to be the case, that if it becomes less likely for you to know exactly how much you're going to get in return by using a bid bot, then it's a lot less advantageous for people to do so, and they'll probably do a lot less of that. It also seems somewhat likely that since it'll now be somewhat more profitable to say, if you don't want to participate on Steam, if you want to delegate out your stake to make a return on investment yourself, you may follow a curation trail instead of delegating to a bid bot. That probably is going to reduce a lot of the stake that bid bots have access to. I would imagine we're going to see a lot of delegations removed from bid bots in lieu of following curation trails instead.
That's going to be interesting to see if that happens. Bluefin's asked, many of the bid bots are built by larger account holders and some by top witnesses. Who exactly is going to flag those? And Dan has said that he looks at his 2.5 free downvotes as upvotes, and no reason for him not to use them each day, but he's going to go after those on trending abuse, which means that you'll be doing exactly what I suggested, going after the ones that really inflate the value of a post.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember too. This all starts with us. This starts with people here, with witnesses here, with developers here, with people who are that have their heart in this whole project. That we do need a cultural shift on Steam. I'm surprised at this point I haven't really seen any posts about new great manual curation trails. Like I haven't seen any posts that say as of Hard Fork 21, where are you going to put your stake, or prepare to undelegate from bidbots to follow these new amazing curation trails, like things of that nature. Like it all starts here. Some people need to start a movement and stuff like that.
Well, that would be interesting to see if people do that. Who's going to put the posts out, guys? You starting those trails? Atch, you used to have a decent trail. You going to switch it over? Got to catch up here. It's going to be interesting to see if there is any changes that actually do come about and what way they go. So Krim made the comment that the tribes are actually bringing about the education on the fact that downvotes are not necessarily a bad thing. Personally, even though I curate for one of the tribes, I don't do very much downvoting. I'm more inclined to make a comment and then put that into the abuse channel. Ats has asked, why not integrate promoted with the actual trending page? We talked about that, Ats.
Yeah, we covered that topic. I'll kind of answer it again real quick though. I also have to wrap this up because I've got another show in 3 minutes from now. Yeah, but we've talked about that in general. We think that that's an interesting idea, a good idea. I think what's going to work more though is as communities roll out, it'll probably be less and less of a focus on a trending page and more about maybe listing specific communities on the landing page. But it's I'm sure the trending page will still always have a place, and it's certainly possible that we could intersparse some posts that have been promoted using the built-in blockchain promotion feature that burns steam, just to push some of those up. If anything, that might create a little bit of a competition between artificially inflating your post to get on trending versus burning your steam to get on trending. So it is an interesting concept. We're certainly not saying no to that by any means.
That would be a good competition to create. So Bluefin has made the comment that removing the trending page would be the single best move to limit the bidbot wars. Got a point?
Or make it some sort of, here's the trending page for 0 to 45 reputation. Here's the trending page for this, for that. So you can find content based not just on the ones that are spending a ton of SP to whatever.
I think there's going to be lots of possibilities explored in the coming months.
So I've got to hop off here. I want to thank everyone, and especially Shadows Pub for having us on the show. This was great, and I really look forward to the next one.
And the next one, I did have a date here, and then I got back to it will be the the 11th of September. Yes, I know that's an infamous anniversary, but life carries on.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna have a great day. See you guys.
Thank you, Justin. And I think we're going to wrap up here as well. We're up on the 2-hour mark. Is there anybody else that has anything that they would like to say before we close out?
No.
No to what?
to your question.
Okay. So thank you everyone for coming today, and those that were listening or are listening on the recording. And I hope you found it of interest today. And until the September the 11th, it's all about community. Take care, all.